I gave you the handout. And on this handout, what we have are 4 different examples. And I first have the sample from the source, and then 4 different attempts by students to use that source. And we're going to look at what is plagiarism and what isn't plagiarism. Okay. Now, this is just my disclaimer. To avoid plagiarism, we have to have that 2-part system. We have to cite the source in the text of our paper in that same sentence that we talk about the information, and we have to cite the source at the end of the paper in a works cited page if it's MLA, or a references page if it's APA. Yes. In the paper and at the end of the paper. So just think of it. It's a 2-part system. One in the sentence after I use the information, and then that will align with something that comes at the end of the paper in my references page. Now, this is my little disclaimer to say I want you to know that that references page is required, but I'm not going to show you the examples from the references page today. We're going to focus on the actual in-text citations, since that seems to be the problem where people run into that accidental plagiarism. Okay, what I want you to do is go ahead and take your worksheet and look at this first quote. It says, then this is an excerpt from Carol Rose, and her editorial was called, "For Women, It's Still 77 Cents for Every $1 Earned by a Man." This was published April 20th, 2010 at boston.com, and that's the website for the Boston Globe. And she said, "Can you believe that 90 years after women won the right to vote and nearly 50 years after Congress passed the first Equal Pay Act, women who work full-time still earn 77 cents for every dollar men earn? For women of color, the numbers are worse. In 2008, African-American women made only 61 cents and Latinas only 52 cents for every dollar earned by white men." Now, this is a direct quote from the source. And below this, 1, 2, 3, and 4, are student attempts to use that source and cite it correctly. What I want you to do is to take a minute and mark which ones you think are plagiaristic and which ones you think are okay. Now, if it's plagiaristic, if you could also mark for yourself how you think you could fix it. Okay, just take a minute to do that. And we're going to do that for each example so you can see where you are and how much you know and how much you need to learn still about this. Okay, so I already read you the original. And then the first student example was in Rose's 2010 article, "For Women, It's Still 77 cents for every $1 earned by a man." She talked about how although it has been nearly 50 years after Congress passed the first Equal Pay Act, women who work full-time still earn 77 cents for every dollar men earn. And what do you think? Do you think this is plagiaristic? Yeah. Let's look at why. What I've done here, I've said, okay, this is plagiarism. And I've put in yellow every part of this that makes it plagiaristic. Now, what did she do right? What did the student do right? Well, she told us where the information came from. She said in Rose's 2010 article and named the article. And we put articles in quotation marks to indicate that that's the name of the article. So that's good. She is doing something right here. But the problem is down here for something that's represented as a paraphrase, this nearly 50 years part that's in yellow, that is just words directly from the source put into the student's paper and not shown to be someone else's words. What could be done to fix this one? Actually, we already have the name of the author at the beginning of the sentence, so as long as it's in the same sentence, we're okay. But what we're missing here is quotation marks around the words that aren't hers. The words that came from that source that I've put in yellow for you, those need to be in quotation marks. Every word that came directly from the source needs to have quotation marks around it. So we'd put quotation marks here, and we'd put quotation marks here. Okay, so the next example. The student tried to use the source by saying, nearly 50 years after Congress passed the first Equal Pay Act, Women who work full-time still bring home 77 cents for every dollar men earn. And what do you think on that one? Let's have a look. What this student did was what a lot of students try to do. They cite the source, so we got that Rose 2010 at the end of the sentence to let us know where it came from, and they change maybe one or two words in the source, in the sentence, but that's not enough to make it a true paraphrase. This is still plagiaristic because the only words that were changed, they changed earn to bring home. Well, there are two problems here. One, bring home and earn don't mean the same thing. If you've ever had a job, you know that what you actually earn per hour is very different from what you actually bring home. So we don't want to misrepresent the source by making the information false. So that's one problem. But the second problem is by changing earn to bring home, we haven't actually paraphrased this. It's still all those yellow words. It's still the author's words. So what we would be best doing in this case is changing bring home back to earn, making it back to the original, and putting quotation marks around everything to indicate this whole thing is from our source.